Good evening and welcome back to the Oasis podcast. I'm John Mark and this is Wayne Weaver. Wayne, you just got a haircut.
Hey,
you're looking pretty sharp
look
there. I'm
that.
telling you.
Oh
yeah,
my goodness.
That's
Yep.
awesome. It's, you know what?
Wow.
Those things are important in life, make you feel like a new man or.
Yeah. And you know what? I've been getting a haircut from the same guy for almost about 46 years. And I don't know that I ever paid for one haircut from
Really?
him. No. Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing.
Yeah. Because he buys things from us and we trade it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What an interesting arrangement. Yeah.
It is.
It's fun.
Yeah.
But you've been pretty busy this week.
I have been very busy this week with complicated things.
Complicated things. And a couple of years ago, you were ready to kind of sort of withdraw from a lot of these things. But God has done a really neat work in you and has empowered you in ways that.
But a lot of that is contributed to you coming and being administrative here, taking so much of the load of details that I really enjoyed. But, because I was always a volunteer, it's just not same. And so I get a great satisfaction driving past here, if I go past here, thinking that, John is sitting in there and he is doing the things that need to be done, the organization, all this and that. I can call him and say that, hey, would you do yada, 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 and you'll have that all ready and printed out. I never had that. Not in church. Mm-hmm. Business, yes. Not in church. And so, but I also, so I thank you for that tremendously.
Thank you, yeah.
On the other hand, I thank the church that they are giving towards that we can pay somebody to do that. So church, thank you for that.
Amen.
I wish I would have had it now for the last 40 years.
Would have gone right along with that haircut, right?
There you go.
Well, and I think that actually, when we talk about this, because when we talk about all of these things, the things that you didn't have in the past, but have been working toward, and our title today is Preparing for the Future without imploding in the present. Yeah. That might sound a little over the top, but I think many people feel the pressures. You work hard, you plan, and along the way, you take on responsibilities, you pick up stuff, and you never really know how to sort of shuffle those out, and your hands get really full. Your heart gets really full, your emotions, and you carry a lot of stuff with you. And you did that, and then it kind of impacted your heart, and your doctor had to talk to you about that.
Yeah, something in here behind my glasses, something started going wrong back here. And it came because I didn't manage my stress correctly. I didn't even know there was such a thing until it was too late. And that was a wake-up call, tremendous wake-up call.
And back then, you were feeling like what people called stress, you kind of enjoyed. It was that things going and carrying on, but your doctor had a little different definition of stress.
Yeah, so one of the things is when I had this light heart attack, I asked the doctor asked me right away, do you have a lot of stress? Well, I mean, yeah, look at my hair, why are they white? But then I said, I do have a question for you before I answer that. I said, I've never really heard the definition of stress. Because if you are out and about and you're doing things and maybe there's breakdowns and there's things and it's people calling and it's like you're just kind of like weaving through a high construction area zone and that's your day. And
adrenaline's pumping and everything. Yeah.
And I love that. I have already gone down a road when it was like that, and I just almost pumped my fist almost. I just love this. Well, and so if I like that, does it hurt me? It was a question I had, and I thought that was stress. But the doctor's definition of stress was completely different. Doctor's definition was if you go to bed in the evening and it sits on your shoulders. and you wake up in the morning and it's still there, that's stress. And that's the stress that will harm you. Now, when you're younger, you can handle that stress. But when you get older or more mature, not older, of course not, but more mature.
No, older is one word.
No,
it's just more seasoned.
We don't do that, yeah. But as you get older, things change, and I see this is what's happening when you get older. You think different. Mm-hmm. You know, someone says, well, let's go do this. Well, I look at all the details involved in doing that. But when I was younger, I didn't look at the details. I just did it. Changes. And all that can add to a job or a task or something that you need to do all at once looks much bigger than it used to when you were young. Mm-hmm. That's part of it.
That is part of it. And that's why I think tonight we want to talk about mm-hmm. how do we actually do this? How do we plan for the future without just falling apart mm-hmm. in the middle somewhere? And that's a tough one, because I think at various stages in the journey, you think you're doing it, and then suddenly you hit that one more thing, mm-hmm. and it's like everything wants to either fall mm-hmm. in on you or explode. And navigating that journey from youth to age to retirement mm-hmm. can be a challenge. And since we're not at age or retirement yet, we don't have to worry about that really, but we want to think about it.
We want to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're glad you're with us tonight. Mm-hmm. For those of you joining us, and again, just remind you to like it and subscribe to this channel if you do like it anyway, and send us your comments to library@oasistabernacle.org. We'd love to hear from you. So I want to begin by reading a couple of scriptures tonight. Mm-hmm. And great. When we were talking about this earlier today mm-hmm. and this topic, how does a person know when to start a thing? How do you know when to grow or build the thing you started? And then probably the toughest one is, how do you know when to decelerate? And how do you do that? Mm-hmm. I don't know if you can answer that, but we're going to start with...
Yeah, I can answer that in part. I mm-hmm. can, because I've done that in things. Yeah, and I don't know when you want me to speak about that.
Well, we'll get there. Yeah. Let's start with Ecclesiastes. We were talking about this whole topic. Mm-hmm. I thought, Ecclesiastes seems mm-hmm. to be the place, because Solomon looks at all of these ideas of work mm-hmm. and pleasure and mm-hmm. laughter and sadness and retirement and all mm-hmm. of this stuff.
He's been there.
He's been there, done that. And at one point, he says it's all meaningless. Actually, at several points he mm-hmm. says that. But Ecclesiastes 3:1 says this: "To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven." And he goes on and he lists a number of those things. And, we kind of know mm-hmm. that list. But to everything there is a season and a time. And you've been talking a lot about seasons mm-hmm. recently. And then I wanted to also read this, Ecclesiastes, a little further down in the chapter, 3:10 and 11. "I have seen the God-given task with which the sons of men are to be occupied." I like that, the mm-hmm. God-given task. Mm-hmm. And then verse 11, "He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, he has put eternity in their hearts, except that no one can find out the work that God does from the beginning to end." So he really focuses on the interaction with God as he talks about everything having a season and a time, mm-hmm. a place for everything. He says it's actually in its time, mm-hmm. it's beautiful. Now, there are some things we don't think feel so beautiful, but I believe if we take that in conjunction with what Paul says when he says that we know that all things work together for the good to those who are called of God according to his purpose, that kind of makes sense. It's at least, even if it doesn't feel good, maybe it's working toward that good. But let's talk about this. How does a person know when to start a thing, grow or build a thing, and then when to decelerate?
Do I look at my experience in this? I probably need to. And I don't know that I have a very good answer for that. However, I've started a lot of things.
You've grown a lot of things.
Yeah, I have, and started most everything that I have, and then grown it, and so there's seasons of it, and this is one of the things that I think it's important to bring out because it has helped me to see that in the age I am right now, which is 68, and to some people I'm still very young, but in the way I look at myself is I'm understanding thoughts of an older person in ways that I never could when I was younger. And so...
And that's great to be able to understand those while you're still young.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know why I have that been given to me. That, well, I'm so young, I can understand so much how old people are. No, but I am young at heart. Mm-hmm. I really am. I'm young at heart, but I will say this, that, there's times that I'm faced with things that affect me so much different than they used to. Because when you're younger, you don't even think of end. You don't think of, all you think of is go forward, go forward, go forward, and go faster, go bigger, or be more impactful, or there's opportunity, or just keep on going, mm-hmm. going. Whether you're in a sales job, whether you're in whatever it is, it's motivation. But there comes a time when motivation is not the driving force in you. When you look at tasks, you look at, so where will this take me now? How long should I be doing this to where I can slow down? I never thought of that 10 years ago. I never thought of that.
Slow down. What's that?
So what's
Brakes?
that?
Yeah.
What's that? You don't even think about that. And all at once, it's like, I'm tired. I wish I wouldn't have responsibilities here and there and this and that. I wish I could just somehow and this is my mind. I wish I could somehow just turn everything over and sit on a chair and do nothing for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah. So
I just need a little reprieve.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for 5 minutes, and then I'm ready to go again. I wish I wouldn't have done that. And so those are things that I struggle with, and that I don't want to say I struggle with it, but I face it.
Well, what do you call it though? Is it a wrestling
season?
with it?
You wrestle with it. You wrestle with it because it's not that the ambition is not there, mm-hmm. but the task looks. I don't know how to understand it completely. It's not necessary that I do this, and I've concluded this. Let me say this: I've concluded this, that some of the involvements that I have. When I was a young preacher, I was a young businessman, and I could basically run everything in my business. I knew how. Okay, so in sign work and doing all that, we boom, 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 I do this and do that and do that. Yeah, within 10 people, and it was so easy. And all at once, it's like, what? I outgrew that. And so how do I outgrow that? How do I respond when I outgrow that? Well, for me, I did the right thing. I turned it over to people that I feel could do it better than I did, and turned them into general managers to do things that they're better at than I am. Okay, so I lost my identity in that, all right? But what I did is, I look back in life, I created another identity. What? I started another business. And there's where my identity was. So the same thing in the beginning of this, I now did this, mm-hmm. which was maybe 8 years later. But my identity was still there. And then all at once that started going to a place where it's like, I can't do it anymore. I need somebody better. And it went that way. I put people in place. But then, all right. And then what? Then I did now I'm out here doing nothing. What do I do? I don't have a place to grab a hold of. And so what I do is I'll start another business. That's how I started numerous businesses. Well, now at this age where I've come to, I'm not wanting to do that. So where's my identity? Who am I? I can't go to any of my companies and say that I want to work here. Doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's split loyalty. They'll honor me because I'm the owner, and they'll say, yeah, no. You have a foreman. That's who you talk with. And it creates a whole different environment to where you feel out of place wherever you walk. And yeah, it's the way it is. But that's part of the last part of what you have there about shutting down or concluding. And I struggle with that because so far I've always had that identity. Well, and somebody that does not have this experience would say, well, why do you need identity for it? That's because that's the way I lived. And everyone has identity.
Well, you do. I mean, you watch that in any sphere when a person, especially founders or entrepreneurs or whatever, you've got this thing going, you've wrapped up, you've invested your whole life into this.
Yeah.
Well, in a sense, when Jesus was right, when he says, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Well, part of that is because of the investment that you've been making. And when you step away from some of those things, it's very difficult. Someone was asking me recently about, church leadership and transitions. And I said, well, I think one of the things that we've never figured out quite is that when you look at pastors as they get older, one of the things that they don't do is you don't retire from relationships. You know what I'm saying? Like a job, you might step away from that and find something else to do, but relationships, you don't do that with.
It's true, but with relationship comes another side of things. With relationships, how should I say this? As a pastor, as a business person, people always tap into you for, it's like I said today, I received a call from numerous states today. And for people that, some of them just wanted to chat a little bit, some others had some struggles and problems they wanted to discuss. And it was actually on the barber's chair when I was, and it's like, okay, so your phone rings and it's like, oh, I have so many calls that as soon as I'm done with this haircut, I got to go and call these people back. And
you just want to have a really long haircut, right?
Yeah, a long hair cut. And so what I said is, and somebody said, well, can't you just shut the phone off? And I said, well, I've quit taking my phone into most of my meetings that I go into a meeting. I don't take my phone in. But then when I come out and then I answer the phones and someone said, well, can't you just have people call you when they're in trouble? And I said, well, that's all it is. When they're in trouble, that's why they call me. And so that is life. But that's what happens in a relationship. People start having confidence in you and that's created and developed because you've had some answers for them in the past that they're looking for. You probably help them with this. And so that's part of relationship. Relationship is not just to say hi and bye. That's not really, that's a very, very narrow relationship. But when you can sit down with people and talk and discuss, and they will open up their lives about struggles and problems they have, and you then look into that life, and that's part of who we are. In business is the same way. And it just happens that when you're really young, when I was young, I preached on the streets. I went to the city. I went to New York City. I preached on the streets. I was a street preacher. And because I had a burden for evangelism. Well, where did the burden go? First love. And did that first love leave you, or what happened? And I remembered going back and thinking back of some of the great revivalists that have existed in life, and maybe even some, and you could even use Charles Finney was an exception to that as well. He was a revivalist that where he went, there was just revival. And at the end, he was almost a politician, and very little about what the revival was all about. But what happened is your walk broadens tremendously, and it's hard to keep it narrow because of the passion that you have. And so I'm not a street preacher in this age, and I don't think about anybody is at my age, but there's a season for it. When you're really young and your vision is maybe narrow, it's good, but it's narrow. But as that grows, all at once, if I can say it this way, and I don't like to use this way of analogy, but you become more important to more people. And so when you become more important, that gets wider and wider and wider. Well, what it does, it takes that little moment up on a street corner, it takes that away into a much broader sense, where we're actually much more effective in many ways, but not just converting a soul to Christ because you preached on the street. And so that can be complicating to a person, and it can be condemning to a person that had such a zeal, and all at once that zeal is still there. There's still effectiveness, but it's not the standing behind a pulpit and screaming your lungs out and people flocking to. At this age, that changes. That can be very complicated to a person where he can live under a lot of condemnation. But that also goes in business. You know, at one point I was working the shop. I was the shop. I did all that stuff. I don't work in the shop. I don't see the sawdust. I don't, you know, and all this. Life changes with seasons, and so we have to understand that as your zone broadens, you have to understand that your desire and your passion is still same, but it's much wider, much more vast. You know, back then I didn't reach into other countries. Now I reach into other countries. Well, it's just because why? People know about you. They hear about you.
I think with that whole thing, too, is, you know, we only have 24 hours in a day. Mm-hmm. Everybody has that. Mm-hmm. And there was a time when you could devote time in a very specific way.
Yeah.
But now, even as relationships grow, even a street preacher, if he stays there long enough, is going to have a church. And then he's going to have to do the discipling and all of that goes with it, right? So
that's exactly right.
At some point, I mean, that's a big question for a lot of people, is how do I know, because I started this thing, and when I started it was very simple. But now, whether it's business, whether it's preaching, whatever it is, but now I have added this to go along with this, to extend this, to increase that, and all of a sudden, my plate has gotten so full. How do I now know what to move off and what to retain to maintain some sense of efficiency and effectiveness in what I'm doing?
Well, okay, so here's another thought. Some of you might say that, well, it's not that you're involved in business like that. You have a family. Remember when you had the first baby, you held it, went to work, came home. It was just give the bottle. That's about it. All at once you have 2 children, you have 3 children, you have 4 children. All at once they get married. Now you have grandchildren, and it widens you too. So we always grow. Growing is good. It always gets bigger. Our picture always gets bigger. And for it to then all at once start diminishing, where do I stop and so forth. For me, I had the cold, jolting reality that my heart says, this is where you stop. I've got to change things. And it's amazing how much energy comes out of your heart. I didn't know that. I mean, this heart, you don't think about it. It'll support you in everything you do. You'll go fast forward. You can do this, you can do that, and everything. And all at once, when the heart says, you know what, I cannot keep up with you anymore, and I'm going to start missing some beats, and this could be a chance for you to die, pass on, or have a stroke, or this is what happens because the blood starts clotting, your heart's not working, and for my case, it was because of stress. That was my wake-up call. Now, it was not only that, but I didn't know my heart had so much an effect on me that it gave me a lot of energy, a lot of effort. Now, all at once, it has slowed me down. And that doesn't feel quite right either, because my mind has not slowed down. So you can really get into some complicated things if you don't handle this right, because you can feel like a backslider. You can feel like you are not worth anything anymore. You can feel like you're just trouble. You can feel lonely. You can feel forsaken. You can feel you don't understand. And while these turmoils find residence of conclusions in your life, it can be very, 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 very difficult. And there was nobody there to instruct me. So I did not understand what I will go through and what I can go through in this, because I was high speed. I was going 150 mile an hour, and all at once I'm allowed to go 10. And it's like, whoa. And I think for somebody to have a debilitating health issue, a big one, would be easier to accept because you have no options. But I could still do all of the things. But what I noticed in my heart was my heart just does not give me the energy I need. And I had to slow down. I had to start walking slower. I remember going up the steps to your office. Those are long steps. I had to stop halfway up. It hurt. I mean, it's like I'd never thought of that. So my heart has regulated me. And I say that people that once you turn 50, I'm not a medical doctor, nor am I giving medical advice, but once you start 50, especially 55, that's the speed limit, and I felt in more than one way that was my speed limit. We need to consider managing stress. You know, managing stress doesn't mean that you can't do what you've been doing, but you have to learn to manage it. And that's been very critical for me. I very hard. I can't say no. I can't say no. When I see a need, I want to fill that need. When I see a person has problems, my passion has not had an attack. I didn't have a passion attack. I had a heart attack. Mm-hmm. And so the passion is still there.
That's good.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so then when you say, you know, I just can't anymore, I can't, then there's a guilt thing because there was so much passion in you for so many years, and that's how you help people. And that's how people came through, and all at once, you're not there for them. And I see this as from a church perspective, as to many people. You remember, we had to shut things down. We said no more phone calls, and it was simply to save me. No more phone calls. Don't call me because he can't handle it right now.
And that was hard. That was hard even for
very hard.
The people around you.
Very much so, yeah.
And that's part of what keeps us caught up in this cycle where we keep trying to maintain all of this so that everybody feels good. But at that point, we had to make that very difficult decision. Yeah. And some people can be offended. Some people can be, well, what's going on? And some people had ideas like that.
And some people said, I don't care. I'm going to call him anyway.
Exactly.
But you know what? That helped restore me in many ways. And once in a while, I see that I still feel a little bit here. So I'm not back to where I was, and I probably don't expect that will happen. Because age contributes to this. Not that I'm old, but no. I'm just a year older than I was last year. And so I have to readjust and not allow guilt to look as defeat in my life because I don't have the ambitions that I used to. I have the passion, but and the ambitions are not quite there. It's like this business seminar that's coming up tomorrow that we have here at Oasis. It's a good thing, by the way. If you haven't registered, register for the business seminar because it'll be a very good thing. Yeah. But anyways, so when I felt it's necessary that we have a business seminar because we have many business people that come to our church here. And it would be great for them to hear from experience, hear from, how to better and so forth. And not a high-powered thing of leadership. Mm-hmm. Right. It's not about that. It's about being who you are. But in that, I told you that you guys, if you could just go ahead and plan it. I just don't want to plan it. I'm so tired right now. I'm so tired of planning. I just don't want to plan things. And I'll say this, that from my heart experience, planning things is very stressful. Mm-hmm. It's very stressful. And I see that I have to curb that. The fall conference that we have, that is bothersome to me. and it causes me stress. And because I'm sitting here at times and I'm mulling over this, how will this be? How will it, we have these speakers coming in from other countries, and how will this, will this all work out? And those are the things that your heart can disagree with. So I have learned now, because of my heart, that there's just certain things that I have to curb, take more time to process. And I really would like to tell you all that are out there, don't wait to do that till you have a heart attack. This is not good, because the strength that goes out of you, in my experience, has not been same since. Even though I've gotten a lot of help. You were one of the people that came in here, others stepped up. It's very obvious. And it has relieved me a lot, to where I see that, I don't think people knew how low I was. And I hear that from people.
Well, you probably didn't even know how low you were.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. And I didn't know that a heart would affect you like that. But to me, it was not the eating. It was not that problem. When they examined my heart, they said, the issue with my heart is not the pump, which is the lower part of your heart in layman's terms, but it's in the mechanism between the brain and the top of the heart where the nerves go in. And so the nerves have been overloaded, and they throw mixed signals into the heart, and the heart doesn't know what to think, and creates an attack. And so when the heart stops doing what it's supposed to because of mixed signals from the computer, that's what happened. And so I had to change some things. And I will say this, I made very many wise decisions early in my life by putting general managers into places in business that I don't have to worry a thing about it. Right. Not a thing. And they are very aware of this. They can have problems in their, in their company. They can have a problem that they know they will not contact me. They will not let me know unless it's something that is really big that they need my help with. But they're very, very protective of me in very many ways. And not only just because it's me, but it's because they take full responsibility of what they're doing. And of course, you had to teach that. Somebody will say that, well, where do you pick up people like this? Well, you have to teach them. And the other thing is you have to give them responsibility. What I saw also is it is not good for me to have my hands on everything, because I've noticed I was in a church some years ago when the preacher was also the song leader, and he did all of that. And you know what? Everything smelled like him. He was a great person, but I walked away from there. I told my wife, this is not going to work. Eventually he's going to lose that place, and he did. And because we don't need to put our hands in everything. That's not the point. Because if we do, it'll stink like us. And I don't care who the person is. Eventually, it will smell like that person, and the smell's not good after you have your hands on everything. So I've always maintained that in my business. In business practices, you turn it over to someone, let them do it, all right? And then you keep your hands off. Once in a while, you can go there. You don't have to attend their meetings. You don't have to be there. And once in a while, I'll be in one of the meetings just as a surprise. And I'm always welcome, but I don't have to be there. But if I go to the meeting and then I think that I have to give my 5 cents and 5 cents, see, now I'm stinking the place up. And I don't want my business to smell like me. I don't. When I say that, I want it to smell like them. They are the ones that are running it. They are the ones that have that responsibility. Let it smell like they have it. And if I can exemplify that, they will follow that pattern and do the same thing. So that the general managers out in a production area, that place doesn't necessarily smell like the general manager, but it will smell like the foreman that is running it. And that's the way it needs to be. That, to me, has been one of my great successes. It really has. And I think that's probably very true, because there's so many people that want to have a manager or have somebody run something,
but they don't really want to let go. They still carry the stress of it.
Yeah.
They still carry
Yeah.
the responsibility. And in some ways, when you do that, it's almost like you end up having a little tug of war between, nobody's quite sure. And
And see, in business, if you can't let loose, it's your ego. But if in church, if you can't let loose, it's guilt. It's different. It's two
so
different
we might
things.
actually have some egotistic or guilty people listening, huh?
Oh, it could be, but that's often the way it is. A bad leader is always afraid that someone has a better idea, because he thinks he has to have that on his list. I'm the one that thought that, and I don't care. The best of us, and I struggle with it at times, and it'll leak out here and there. But I try to always keep my flesh under, so where it doesn't. But once in a while, and then I also sit in places where I see that, those were thoughts that I had shared and someone else is taking the credit for it. That's fine. I can do that. That's not a problem. And yeah, I hear that a lot. And that's fine. But I've looked at it. So that was an important thought that somebody else picked up, and I'm glad they're using it. Obviously, it's meant something to them. And so I bless that. All right. I don't need that honor. I don't need that honor. And I have many things that, how should I say? There's many things that speak of who I am. I don't need to do that.
And that's a challenge. I think part of the reason that we have the stress loads that we carry is because of those very things. We're concerned that somebody else is getting the credit for something we've done. We're stressed about trying to manage that, and many times grabbing for those things brings a load of stress because we want the affirmation. We want, but I think we often bring a relational stress that we wouldn't need to.
Yeah, that's
if
definitely
we could
true.
if we could walk in a place of, as you were describing, of humility.
Yeah. And that has to be there. There is company people that they have to be there every day. They have to control everything, and it's because they think they're the best. And I'll say like this: that I looked at that. I remember when I looked into that mirror, and I said, "So, are you the best person to do this on the earth?" I know I'm not. I know I'm not the best. We'll find somebody better, and don't be intimidated by that. Look at it as being actually an asset to you. And I've learned to go that route. And to me, it's not, I don't have to get the credit. In fact, it's like this, John. In business, there's a lot of people that don't know what all I have, what all I own. And they actually think, in fact, somebody here lately thought my son owns one of the companies I have. He just thought, I thought your son was the owner. Well, I don't think my son would have ever indicated anything like that, but it's because my face is not there. And he is, and that's good. That's fine. Let him have that, whatever that is. It doesn't bother me. That doesn't bother me. That's fine. The only thing that bothers me, do I even go here? The only thing that I can say that actually bothers me in business sometimes is we are very, how should I say this? How do I say this? Maybe I shouldn't say it. I can't think of the word. I'll stop right there. I'll ask me other questions.
Okay,
because I don't think I'm supposed to say this.
I really liked what you were talking about there about stinking things up, and really, and there's a passage in 2 Corinthians 2:14 and 15 that talks about a fragrance that we're supposed to have, and I think there's many times that as believers in business, we can almost forget that fragrance that we're supposed to bring, but. Paul, speaking in this letter to the Corinthians, he says, "Now thanks be to God who always leads us in triumph in Christ, and through us diffuses the fragrance of his knowledge in every place.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Through us.
Yeah.
He diffuses the fragrance of his
Yeah.
knowledge in every place. Every place.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of forget that. We want to be seen and heard and known, and yet in these assignments, whether it's the business assignment or whatever, in every place that God sends his people, there's this fragrance that he is dispensing through us or diffusing through us. For we are, verse 15, we are to God the fragrance of Christ among those who are being saved and among those who are perishing. Now, when you talk about leaving a scent, that was really an interesting thing.
Yeah.
But in this place, it starts to smell like. And I think one of the things that is very key is that if God is the fragrance, if the knowledge of God is a fragrance that is coming through our interactions, there's a good chance that there will be a lot less of the relational and emotional stress in those places as well.
Yeah. And to say that is the fragrance that comes from God is wisdom. And that wisdom can be there, and you can teach that, you can speak about that, you can give input, but it doesn't make it smell like you. You know what I mean? The other thing too is we carry a scent with us. I don't care who it is. When a certain person walks in a room, you just automatically know there's a certain scent. Now, I'm not talking a nose scent. I'm talking a certain scent that will come. A problematic person, you wonder, what's going to happen now? Somebody knocks on your door, like in old days. What does that person want?
Yeah, they just have this look. Yeah.
There's a scent. Then there's a scent of people that when you speak to them, they speak too long. And yet I know I can't get away from that person if I start, so I don't want to shake hands. Okay, so that's a scent. There's some that don't want to bother you. That's refreshing. So you want to actually talk to those people. You see what I'm saying? There's a scent that goes out, and the fragrance that it speaks about there, I think, is the wisdom of God. And that is in fine details. The wisdom of God, to my understanding, is never anything really, really big. But it's many, many little things. And that makes something very big. That's
good.
That's the wisdom of God. The final touches, the little things that most people don't see, that never meets their eye, that they don't think. It's the exceptional things. And God is that way. That's who God is. He has details in these things of grace and mercy that sets people free. I mean, it's those details that can take a person that's a mess and turn them into somebody very fresh and new. And it's part of what we are all about. And so I think wherever we go, whether it's in business, church, relationship, or anything, if we don't have a good scent about us, we should really look at ourselves. Because, and you can say, well, a storyteller, for instance, but you tell your stories, maybe a story can make everyone laugh, like it can do, and it can have a refreshing thing. But if you repeat the same stories every time you see them, now it becomes a stench. You see what I'm saying? So
it's like, not that one again.
Yeah, exactly. Am I supposed to laugh here again? I've heard it 10 times. But there is ways that we can bring refreshment and refreshing things to people where they will always feel honored to walk in your presence because, hey, I wonder what I can glean here. They're always wanting. It creates a curiosity that everyone wants to eat of. And that has to do with the fragrance of the Holy Spirit and Jesus. And I think that's in company in everything. It spreads throughout. People are motivated by it. People don't get old and groggy if that's around. And I think the women of the house, when a husband comes home in the evening, and they're always the ones that want to talk, I'll just talk about all the problems we had today. Or the husband that comes home says the same thing. It's been a bad day, leave me alone. This kind of thing. That's a scent. To me, why not, if God makes thorny bushes that have big thorns, but on top of it, he places a beautiful flower, why can't we be like that? even if we have thorns in our life that rub us wrong, things that make our attitudes at times, I can't take this anymore. But find the rose in it. I have this little thing that I've said it for years, that I try to, people that try to pierce me with their thorns, I try to always, the rose that is on the top. They'll throw a thorn, but when I step on it, I don't step on the thorn, but I step on the rose, and off of that is a scent, and you can be that to people. Mm-hmm. You can be that scent to people, that it'll go home with you. If you look at the influence that people have, one of those things, in fact, I'll be bringing it up, Lord willing, tomorrow, is commit your works unto the Lord, and He will establish your thoughts. I remember when that was a revelation the Lord showed me. There's 3 verses like that have been a tremendous asset to me. And if you noticed in the family of the week, mm-hmm. how many times those verses come up? Yeah,
indeed.
And it's because that was a meaningful verse and it is for a lot of people. But that was something I discovered one day, and I remember I spoke about it on a Sunday morning, and it really changed people's lives in the way they go forward. So that's a way to have, it's mm-hmm. His scent, not mine. See what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. This is who we should be.
And I like that. We're going to leave a scent wherever we
mm-hmm.
go.
Yeah.
Make sure that it's His. Yeah, make sure that it's His. Make sure that He is the one. Well, we're out of time, believe it or not. We could go a lot longer, I think, but anyway.
Smell good.
Smell good.
Smell good.
Yes. So wherever you go, leave that fragrance of Christ. And
keep it with your employees.
Mm-hmm.
They will respect you. They'll honor you. They will be They'll be motivated. A lot of people have that problem. They don't know how to motivate their employees. Be a good scent to them. Don't just walk out and, hey, what's wrong with this? Why don't you do? No. How are you doing today? And you can have somebody make a mistake right in front of you, do something bad or whatever. You don't have to scold them for it. You don't have to do that. Leave a good scent. Mm-hmm. That's what motivates people.
And as you're decelerating, don't backfire.
Okay.
Anyway,
that's good.
Thank you for joining us tonight. We want to wish you the blessing of the Lord. Have a good evening.
Yeah.